Here we go. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the Cumberland School Committee meeting to order on Thursday, February 28th at 7:32 p.m. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask everyone to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I would like to welcome our invited guest here tonight. And first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Need a motion to approve by Mr. Hess. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Salvatore. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. Please note for the record that Mrs. Friedman is out today. Next on the order of business is student government report, student government activities. Do we have that tonight, Mr. Superintendent? Can you come up to the podium? Great, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is George Rocha, and I am the sophomore class resident.
And my name is Megan Karlmark, and I am the sophomore class secretary.
Last month, we resumed school on January 2nd and continued selling tickets for Winter Ball, which was held on January 18th at Wright's Farm, which 393 students attended. The night was a large success in addition to acting as a profitable fundraiser for student government.
In February, an extremely exciting event was when we had approximately 20 students from Jinan, China, shadowing students from Cumberland High School during the school days of Monday, February 11th through Friday, February 15th. It was a great experience for the student body of CHS, as well as the students from China, who used their observations to create a project about their experience in America for their teachers back home. Additionally, this month, we began our preparations for Pennies for Patients by distributing donation boxes to all advisories.
Our primary focus in March is the organizing and running Pennies for Patients, which collects donations that are used for patients with leukemia and lymphoma. We organize the fundraiser by giving each teacher a donation box and encourage all students and faculty to donate to this great cause. At the end of the month, the highest contributors are treated to an Olive Garden lunch. The incentive and competitive nature of the teachers and students make for an excellent month-long event for a great cause.
Last year, we raised $3,500, and this year our goal is to beat this amount. In addition to Pennies for Patients, the annual variety show will occur on March 1st and March 2nd in the CHS auditorium. And lastly, the next student government meeting is to be held Tuesday, March 5th at 2 p.m. in room H204 of CHS.
Thank you for your time and have a nice evening.
Thank you. I would just like to point out we have a couple of guests here tonight. Can we have Councilor Mike Kinch, who is our school liaison from the town council, and we have Commissioner Wagner here, and welcome. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda here is the consent agenda, approval of minutes from the regular meeting of February 14, 2019, Town Council School Committee joint budget meeting of February 20th, 2019, special meeting of the school committee on 2/21/2019, approval of the minutes from the executive session from 2/14/2019, and the executive session of 2/21/2019.
221, the ones that I do not have.
You don't have, okay. All right, so we'll table item number 3, the special meeting from 2/21/2019, and the executive session from 2/21/2019. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Fiorello. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. Next is report out of executive, out of executive session from tonight on 2/28/2019. There were no votes taken during the executive session. I need a motion to seal the minutes from the executive session.
Motion to seal.
Motion to seal by Mr. Fiorello, second by Mr. Hess and Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. Mr. Superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and it's my pleasure to start this evening with a few recognitions. If you could join me, Mr. Chairman, at the podium down below, I'd appreciate it. I would like to introduce everyone to Deb Bissett. Deb? What's that?
The grandchildren now.
And the reason that we've invited Mrs. Bissett this evening is because she is planning to retire. And we wanted to recognize her and acknowledge her for her years of service. So Deb Bissett was hired in April of 1989. Is that accurate? And she retires with 30 years of experience. She is currently the guidance secretary, but she has held a number of positions in the high school for the past 20 years. And before that, she was a teacher assistant at North Cumberland Middle School. So we, like to recognize folks for their years of service with a certificate which reads, "In recognition and sincere appreciation for your invaluable contributions throughout your many years of service to the students, parents, faculty, staff, and administrators of the Cumberland School Department. We thank you, Deb, for your years of service." Congratulations. And we have these world-famous bags that we like to give everyone, so you can, when you go to the beach and go on your trips in your retirement, you'll have, you could take that to Disney World with you. So congratulations. Can somebody take a picture with us, Tony? All right, let's just slide over here a little bit. Okay, she just corrected me and said that she was also in the library for 20 years. So lots of different experiences from Deb, and we wish her well in her retirement. So we also have some students that we would like to recognize. And I would like to call up George Condon, a representative of Prudential, who is here to recognize some of our students who have done some impressive volunteer work. Welcome.
Hope everyone's doing well tonight. My name is George Condon, and it's a pleasure to be here today to honor three very special students. My company, Prudential Financial, in a partnership with the National Association of Secondary School Principals, sponsors Prudential Spirit of Community Awards. This national program honors middle level and high school students for outstanding volunteer service. Thousands of young people across the country were considered for the 2019 Spirit of Community Awards. From all of these, one middle level and one high school student in each state and the District of Columbia have been selected for special recognition. Here in Rhode Island, I am delighted to report that our top middle level state honoree is your own Emily Raimondi. Emily, will you please come forward? Nice to meet you. Emily has been singled out from all of the middle-level students in Rhode Island for her outstanding service to community. Emily collects gifts for kids from low-income families and for homeless pets and animal shelters. She's raised nearly $10,000 over the past 4 years for people with spinal cord issues. Emily, we want you to come to Washington, D.C. this May to join all of the other state honorees from across the country for 4 days of special recognition events. During the trip, you will be presented with your $1,000 award and be considered for one of the 10 national awards. I'm also pleased to recognize 2 more outstanding volunteers who have been named Prudential Spirit of Community Awards Distinguished Finalists for 2019. Olivia Barbosa and Connor Nestevet. Would you please come forward? Olivia recruited volunteers to help her create and send 62 menstrual hygiene kits for female students attending school in northern Ghana. Connor has spent hundreds of volunteer hours planting, tending, and harvesting crops for the historic Metcalf Franklin farm. These organic vegetables were for those experiencing food insecurity. Olivia and Connor, I would like to present you with an engraved Prudential Spirit of the Community bronze medallion in recognition of your outstanding community service. And for Olivia. And Emily, in recognition of your selection as the state honoree, I'm pleased to present you with your silver medallion. Emily, Olivia, and Connor, congratulations on a well-deserved honor, and congratulations again.
So certainly, we are incredibly impressed with the work that these three students have done. And in fact, I have a couple of plaques here that Mr. Costa wanted me to give to Connor and Olivia. He was unable to attend this evening. Unfortunately, he had an event with his own son, which did not allow him to be here, but he wanted me to extend his congratulations to the both of you and to you too, Emily. So, Olivia, congratulations to you. Connor, congratulations to you. Emily, this is congratulations to you. Mr. Costa. You know, I'm always impressed when people give, I think, their most precious resource, and that is their time. I think we all know that, you know, organizations need money to help them support the human beings and also the animals that need help. But the money is important, but I think the most important, precious gift that we can give is our time. So congratulations to the three of you young people who really are role models for all of us. So thank you for representing the Cumberland School Department so well. We're really proud of you. All right, can we get a picture? Come on, please stand over here, please, so we can get a picture.
Get rid of these for you? Yeah, absolutely.
Emily is a lovely companion. I know that Mr. DeMonica welcomed, Dr. Ken Wagner, the Commissioner of Education. Just wanted to let everybody know. He told me that he is a civilian this evening. He's here because he is a friend of Miss Emily. So nice to see him. Nice to see him here. The only other thing that I wanted to share with all of you is we've had many conversations about all of the work that's been happening on the pool at the high school, and I am pleased to report that we are just about done. It looks very different than it did 3 months ago. and it took a little longer than expected, but we're really pleased with the outcome. So we have a special event planned for Monday, March 18th at 6:30. That is Monday, right? I think it's March 18th is a Monday at 6:30 in the Bruce Calvert Aquatic Center. It's not the Cumberland High School pool. It is the Bruce Calvert Aquatic Center, and we're going to invite a number of people, including Bruce Calvert's family, so that we can appropriately recognize the contributions that Bruce made to swimming and maintaining that pool. So we're looking forward to having all of you and the swim team and everyone who's ever participated in the swimming program at Cumberland High School. We're really looking forward to everyone having an opportunity to see the wonderful work that has been done there. And we appreciate the support of the town and certainly the school committee in making this a reality. So more information to come on that event on that Monday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm good.
Thank you. All right, next is report of standing committees. Payment of the bills, Mr. Hess?
We did not have payment of bills this.
Payment of bills and fiscal management subcommittee update?
Okay, fiscal did meet this evening, and the most pertinent information was the business office monthly reports. On the positive side, healthcare costs look to take a positive turn in February, but obviously it's still an area that we're keeping an eye on because that can fluctuate rather dramatically from month to month. But overall, the fiscal 19 budget looks healthy at the moment. In addition to that, we did have a discussion about delinquent accounts for food service. We did send out lawyers' letters to a number of delinquent accounts, and following that action, we have received $10,000 in payments for accounts that were in arrears. So that's trending more positively, but that's still an area of concern for us because it's up significantly from years past.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Next is policy and procedure subcommittee update. Mr. Fiorello.
Yes, excuse me. Policy and procedures did meet on this past Tuesday. 3 items that we discussed were the meal policy, G6, our personal benefit policy, and our J13, which is a child abuse and neglect prevention policy. The G6 conversation really centered around the need to update the salary ranges of all the positions that are covered under G6. It was not done last year, and we needed to get it done before we entered into new contracts with employees. That will actually be on the agenda later this evening for vote. J13, there were 2 concerns with that. One is its designation in the J category, which is the student category. It really should be in the personnel category because it is it applies to personnel and what their obligations and responsibilities are under the state laws regarding reporting child abuse. What we also found is that policy needs a complete rewrite, which the administration is currently working on, and we hope to have it at our next meeting. The other issue that we dealt with was the school meal payment policy as a result of the fact that after about 1.5 years ago, we had changed the policy to ensure that every student was going to get a meal, whether they had a past due balance or not, and it would be the full meal, not the alternative sun butter sandwich or grilled cheese sandwich. And there was a lot of concern at the time about whether or not that was going to have a negative effect, negative impact on our collection rate. Well, 2 years later, it has. We went from having an $8,000 to $9,000 bad debt problem to a $50,000 bad debt problem. While this policy was very well intentioned, and I'll say that myself because I was the one that really brought this up not once but twice before it was actually voted on. I never in my wildest dreams thought that so many people would quite honestly just shirk the responsibility of paying the lunches for their children, because this is not an issue of parents that are struggling financially. I'm sure that's still a portion of it, but there are many things in place to help those parents that are having real need. What we really do have, though, is we have a certain segment of the population that just doesn't believe they should have to pay for the free lunch, that they shouldn't have to pay for their children's meals anymore. And when you have the most affluent sections of town being among the biggest debtors of the meal payment policy, there is a problem there. We have gone to great lengths to reach out to families that need help. We have helped those families, but there is still a problem when you have people posting on Facebook that they refuse to pay their child's balance just because they don't feel they should have to pay for their children's meals. So we're going to correct the policy. Some students will be going back to an alternative lunch, which would consist of the sun butter or the grilled cheese sandwich. There'll be a $1 threshold of a past due balance before that would kick in. We continue to reach out to parents through phone calls, emails, and now letters from the lawyer's office. And some people who owe hundreds of dollars on their child's balances will be sent to collections eventually if they don't make the necessary arrangements to pay off their debt. Plus, it will also endanger their children from being able to walk at their graduation ceremony per the long-standing policy of this district and many other districts that balances and monies that need to be paid before they're allowed to walk. I hate that we have to do this, but quite honestly, this was pushed on us by the people that just don't want to pay their money. And I'm very aggravated by this because I had really had great hopes that we were doing something really positive, and quite honestly, this is why we can't have nice things. So that's all I have to say.
For policy?
Yes.
All right, next is item number D, Achievement and Communication Subcommittee. Did you
We
meet?
haven't met since the last.
We didn't meet. Mrs. Friedman's away, and she'll be back for next month. All right, next is school committee comments and school committee liaison reports.
Oh, wait.
Right? What got skipped? Well, I didn't get it on my sheet.
Oh, sure.
No, I got one here. I got an older one. All right, can we just, let's take a 2-minute break in case students want to leave and go home and, come to school tomorrow. So let's just take a 2-minute break, okay? Thank you. back to order. Our next order of business is comments from the public. Is there anyone that would like to address the school committee? Mr. Kinch, Councilor Kinch.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. First, I just want to thank yourself and Mr. Hess and the administration for coming to our little meeting yesterday to start working on the budget. Was well appreciative that you came down, and I know they have left, but I just wanted to also come down and congratulate the Emily and our other volunteers, Connor, and so that was great. Volunteerism doesn't get the attention it should. You know, we do a lot with sports, and even myself when I was growing up, but it was nice to see them recognized tonight here. And I just, I know the committee knows we did pick our members of the building committee, but just basically for the public, I just wanted to let them know that we have ours. The mayor's was approved, and we do have, we were lucky enough to have 4 great candidates. There are 2 left, so Sandra will have those names, so if there's any additional spot or any, I'm sure they'd be interested because they were well qualified. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Next on the agenda is public hearing regarding reading of the amended policies. E3, school meal payment policy.
E3 was tabled, as was J13. The only policy that I would ask to be read into the record is G6, the personnel benefit policy for non-unit administrative and
Okay, so we
support
have
personnel.
G6, personal benefit policy for non-unit administrative and support personnel to be read into the record. Thank you. Next is public comment on G6. No public comment on G6. Next is new business, discussion and a vote to approve the 2019-2020 school calendar. We have 2 versions of the calendar. Version 1 excludes the February vacation week, which we've been doing for the last couple of years, and version 2 includes the February vacation week for the school year. Does there any of the school committee members have any comments in regards to that? And then I'll ask the superintendent for his thoughts.
I would ask the superintendent to explain the 2
Okay.
first.
Go ahead,
So
Mr.
we'll have questions.
All right,
Superintendent.
so just a quick review, just to build on what DeMonica just shared with all of you. So the first version is closely aligned with this year's calendar. The only difference with version 1 between this year's calendar and version 1, which is proposed, is there is a professional development day scheduled for the start of the school year. So August 26th would be orientation day for faculty and staff, and the 27th would be a professional development day for faculty and staff. And the reason for that is we have some new curriculum that we want to give teachers time to become more familiar with. So that was a request by those individuals who are actively involved in supporting staff in the implementation of new curriculum. So that is the only change there. That is version 1. And as Mr. DeMonica said, this continues with the 1 professional development day in February during what has historically been vacation week. So everyone has the holiday off on February 17th, President's Day. The professional development day would be on the 18th, and students would return on the 19th, 20th, and 21st. The last day of school would be June 9th with this particular version. The second version, the difference between 1 and 2 is that the second one includes a February vacation. So instead of having a professional development day on the 18th, and having the students return on 19, 20, and 21, the plan is to, with version 2, go back to February vacation week, and the professional development day that would have been scheduled for February 18th, that would get bumped to March 20th. So professional development days would occur on August 27th, which is consistent with version 1. October 11th, which is consistent with version 1, and we would have to move, if we decided to go with this version, that professional development day to March 20th. So those are, the difference is very simply, we go back to the February vacation. I can tell you that the CTA, the Cumberland Teachers Association, you know, they have requested that you all consider a version 2. They, I guess, overwhelmingly support going back to February vacation. We had a discussion as an administrative team. The district leadership team reviewed both versions, and I don't know that there was any strong feelings one way or another. Version 1 or version 2, I think, is fine with administrators. A few administrators did feel that that not having the February vacation and having to wait until April vacation to get a, you know, significant break, they did feel that that may have had some impact on students, and felt that that it, you know, it should be taken into consideration. I can tell you that, you know, I really don't have strong feelings one way or another. The only thing that I think about is this. Certainly if we continued with the version that we are currently using, we get out of school earlier. I don't know that that is always a good thing, getting out of school earlier, especially for students who live in poverty, because we know, we've heard many times that we should be concerned about summer learning loss. It's only 3 days, but 3 days is 3 days, and you know, not to be overly dramatic, but we need to be concerned about, you know, students who rely on school to be fed, because we do have students that we feed, and I think that we should take that into consideration. So I really have no preference either way, but as I mentioned, I think if I were to just give my impression on, you know, what most people would be leaning toward, my guess is that it would be leaning toward version 2. I think version 1 would have been okay if we considered March, but we decided a couple of years ago that is not the direction that we wanted to go in. So I think it's, you know, I think it's up to the school committee to support whichever version they feel is best.
Any school committee members have any questions for the superintendent? Go ahead.
Why was it not considered to change April to March to kind of balance out the school and the break?
Well, we went through the exercise a few years ago of considering a March, and interestingly enough, we did a poll, and the data that came back from the survey that we did was 60-40 in favor, and like 1,000, I'm assuming families responded, and it was 60-40 or 59-41, I think is exactly what it was, in favor of a March, but the school committee decided at that time that, because I guess most of they got more concerns via email and phone calls than they did in favor of supporting the change to March, and that's why we, decided, or the school committee decided not to go with a march. So I believe there is only one district in the state right now, Bristol Warren, that has a march. They don't have a February or an April, they have a March. And the reason that it's not even, one of the versions for your consideration is because we went through this process a couple of years ago and it was not supported.
I think when we had voted previously was, we had the children at BVP and we had the children at Mercy Mount as well, and parents, those schools were not gonna follow our lead, and parents having children in 3 different schools or 2 different schools felt they wanted to keep some continuity, so that's why we had stayed with the April and not gone to March. Anyone else have any questions? So I need a motion from a member of the school committee for either version 1 with the stay the same, or version 2 go with February vacation.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to passage of version 2.
Passes of version 2. Do I have a second?
I would like to table this for further consideration and more information.
Well, we could, Mr. Superintendent, when do we have to normally do this schedule?
I think we're required to let the Department of Ed know in March, I believe. Excuse me?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I would just need to know, I'm not exactly sure how much, what kind of information would you need?
Well, this is the first I'm seeing it, so I'd like to digest it and consider the different options and the ramifications of the parents and students of Cumberland before I'm making a decision right now. And the last calendar, I believe, was approved on March 8th, last year's calendar, so I think we have a little bit of time to consider.
Mr. Fiorello, Mr. Salvador.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to rescind then on my motion.
I'd just like to point out for the new members that the school calendar is probably the most controversial issue that you will vote on during your term on the school committee.
As a parent, I agree with you.
I'll make the motion to table until first meeting in March.
Do I have a second to table this to the first meeting in March?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Waters. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. So we'll table that to the first meeting in March. And if anyone from the public wants to weigh in, call Mrs. Waters here.
Yes,
Her
please
phone
call me.
number's
I
on the
would
site.
be happy to hear from everybody.
Okay, next is item number B, vote on teacher non-renewal / dismissal recommendations. Superintendent or?
Ms. Drake, the Director of Human Resources, is here to
Okay.
share that information with you, Mr. DeMonica.
Yes, good evening. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the addition of 1 non-tenured teacher to the list of non-tenured teachers who were approved for non-renewal on February 21st. This particular teacher is also in the non-tenured category and was missed on a previous listing. So I request the advice and consent of the school committee to add that person to the group of non-tenured teachers to be non-renewed.
Due to the fact that Mr. DeMonica needs to recuse himself, I will do the procedure here. So we need a motion to approve the addition of the non-renewal of one of the CTA members.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion made by Mrs. Waters, second by Mr. Hess. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. I'm sorry, 5-0 with 1 recusal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorello. Next is discussion and a vote to approve the overnight student trip, which is North Cumberland Middle School and McCourt Middle School, grade 7 students, to Washington, D.C. on November 2019. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Sean Connolly. I'm a social studies teacher at North Cumberland Middle School. I teach 7th grade students. This is going to be my 4th year coordinating the Washington, D.C. trip. This year, we happened to take 150 students to Washington, D.C. over a 4-day span. It was a highly successful trip. We had a great time with students, got to see some of our major national sites between Arlington National Cemetery, the U.S. Holocaust Museum, the Newseum, just to name a few of the stops along the trip. I stand here in front of you today not only for approval, but also for a change in the trip compared to how we have traditionally handled it. So after coordinating this trip for the past 4 years, it's definitely been taken into consideration is the spacing of the trip. So this year I am in front of you requesting an extension of the trip to have students leave on Thursday, November 7th, to go into Monday, November 11th. The purpose behind the request is the spacing of the trip regarding time. So we traditionally have students leave at 6 a.m. on the Friday. What ends up happening is if we hit a bad traffic pattern, we end up running into this case of our first stop is supposed to be at 3:30, and there's been a couple of times where we have not landed to the first site until about 4:30. But we have to be considerate of the fact that the bus drivers only have a certain amount of hours. So if they run out of hours, we cannot go to some of the sites afterwards that are planned after dinner. So by traveling on Thursday, our hope would be to leave our itinerary, projected itinerary right now says to leave at 2. But if our full purpose of it is to maximize the students' day at school. And then, if we had to stretch and not leave until 2:30 until the conclusion of the school day, we could work that into the schedule. So we would travel on Thursday, and then Friday we would request to have the day off like we traditionally do from school, and then Monday is the holiday. That gives us Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to have full days in Washington, D.C., along with adding some new venues to the trip. It also allows the kids to have some breathing room between sites instead of cramming everything into about 2.5 days when you logistically look at what was going on in the trip beforehand. And then on Monday, we would be able to leave bright and early in the morning, and that would get us home for approximately anywhere between 4:30 in the afternoon to 5:30, as opposed to 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock, and having students come back the next day. So the trade-offs of this, it is about a $119 increase, which I understand that is a substantial increase, yet we are under the consideration, along with my boss here, Beth Coughlin, of phasing in a fundraising opportunity for students to make it economical. And additionally, if we get your approval here, the other aspect of this is I'm in front of the school committee about 2 months earlier compared to what I usually am. So the Jump Street Company, which we have been working through with the Quebec trip for a period of time as well, they're very good about phasing in months of payments, so families would actually have the ability to pay out several payments as opposed to these large chunks of payments in a longer span of time. So that's also a benefit of getting the approval early if you're willing to consider it.
Anyone have any questions in regards to the trip? Mrs. Waters.
Hi. I just was looking in the notes of the proposal that there hadn't been fundraising considered, so I'm glad to hear that you're considering the fundraising.
Yeah, so when that originally went through, so we were still waiting on the budget passing, but the one thing was we needed a final number, and the trip company was able to give us the optimal price. So yeah, that is something that we were considering. We're working on that component.
So with the trip being in November, you'll probably have to have the kids start fundraising almost like immediately, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. The light bulb one is fantastic.
I agree.
Anyone else have any questions in regards to it? I need a motion. Mr. S., go ahead.
Are there any plans to increase the number of students that could attend?
So the answer to your question is no, and this is why. So after coordinating it for 4 years, traditionally what I have seen with data that I have collected, in the past 4 years, we have only had 5 students max in potential, really looking at the logistics of when kids registered. So typically the trip registration has been at the end of the year. So the kids who have not been able to go in the past, they registered in like September or October. So not saying that we did not give them any consideration or anything, but if once you start, if the numbers had not been, if they had been higher, we would have considered adding another bus. But let's say you only you take 3 buses for just one of the schools, and you put 35 in each one, then you run into the problem of the sliding scale where the kids could be paying upwards of anywhere from $90 to $150 more. Based on that, so that's kind of the running factor there, where optimally we've been able to hit the price with having 3 bus loads in which they can fit 50 on each one.
Okay. All right. As a parent who sent my son on the trip this year, and I think saw some of the issues that you're trying to ameliorate with these changes, I would wholeheartedly endorse the changes he's suggesting, and I would move that we approve it.
Mr. Hess moves passage of the trip to Washington. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Bernardo and Mrs. Waters. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on our agenda is discussion and a vote to approve the Cumberland Teachers Association CTA 2018-2021 contract. Previously, back on September 19th, we approved the temporary agreement here, a tentative agreement. It had to do with the fiscal matters. We were working on dealing with language in the contract that the union and the administrator wanted to be resolved. It has been resolved, and so it's now here for approval tonight to finalize that agreement. I need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Fiorello. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Salvatore. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. That's matters taken care of. Next, Superintendent, is the discussion and a vote to approve homeschool instruction requests for the 2018-2019 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe there is one request that needs to be approved, so I recommend approval.
Superintendent recommends approval. Do I have a motion?
A motion to approve the
Motion.
homeschool instruction?
By Mrs. Waters, second. Second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. All right, next is discussion and a vote to approve amended policies. Item number 2, G6 personal benefit policy for non-unit administrative and support personnel. That's the only one we're voting on tonight.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to pass.
Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to pass.
Second?
Seconded by Mrs. Waters. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Excuse me? Opposed? 5 to, the matter passes 5-1. Thank you. All right, so we have item number G, discussion and a vote to approve employee contracts. Item numbers A through D, number 3, are being tabled. We found some errors in the contracts that were being done, and in order to do it, I've asked that they all be done together so no one feels like they're in the bubble or something. So we're just going to correct that, and it'll be on our next agenda. Do I need a motion to table those contracts to our first meeting in March?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Hess. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fiorello. Any discussion? All in favor? Ayes have it, 6-0 to table that to our first meeting in March. Next is superintendent's contract. Superintendent's contract was given, it was given a 1-year contract last year. And we have worked something out with him where an additional 2 years, to extend his contract for an additional 2 years. Most of us feel he's done a good job, and I need a motion to approve the superintendent's contract for an additional 2 years. Motion approved by Mr. Fiorello, second by,
Second for discussion.
by Mr. Hess for discussion. Go ahead.
I just want to say that I think Superintendent Mitchell has done a fantastic job in the past year. He's put together an excellent administrative staff, and the evidence that we can see of him moving the district forward with our RICAS scores and what we've seen with the achievements of students is something that should be applauded, and that's why I would vote in favor of extending the contract.
Any other discussion? Well, I have to agree, Mr. Demona's in the back of the room as well, and I'm sure it didn't happen, Mr. Mitchell didn't do it all alone, that's for sure. So I have a motion and a second
Mr.
by
Chair.
Mr. Hess, Mr. Salvatore.
Mr. Mitchell, I hope that, you don't tank the district now that you get in 2 years, you know. Just kidding, I'm just kidding.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0, thank you. Next is, we're tabling the number 2, the 3-year contract for the truancy residence officer.
Motion to table.
Motion to table to the first meeting in March?
Yes.
Yes. Seconded by Mr. Salvatore. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0 to table. Any personnel recommendations? Yes.
Request the advice and consent of the school committee on the retirement of Leah Dow, grade 1 teacher at Cumberland Hill School, with an effective date of August 15th, 2019, after 23 years of service.
And is there another one for
Yes.
retirement when we take the two together?
Okay. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the retirement of Maureen Mattow, library media specialist at Cumberland High School, with an effective date of June 30th, 2019, after 19 years of service.
I have a motion to accept these recommendations. Motion by Mr. Hester on the two retirements. Second by Mrs. Waters. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. Next is on the resignation.
Yes, we have one. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Connor Geary, social studies teacher at North Cumberland Middle School, effective February 13th, 2019.
I have a motion. Motion by Mr. Hess.
Second.
Second by Mr. Salvatore. Mrs. Waters, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. Next is school committee comments, school liaison reports. Mr. Fiorello.
I had the pleasure of, it's reading week here in Cumberland, and I had the pleasure of reading to a 5th grade class at Garvin Elementary School. If you have not read to a class, I highly recommend you try to get in there at some point, even outside of reading week. The kids love it, and it's one of the great parts of this job. So I just want to thank Garvin for welcoming me in. Thank you.
I would just like to say budget season is beginning. Members of the school committee and the town council had a joint meeting last week in regards to the budget going forward, and there was a special meeting the other day on Wednesday as well, and hopefully the town will have the budget resolved for this current year, and we'll start dealing with next year. So Mr. Mutter has, as mayor, has a big task ahead to do what he needs to do, and I look forward to attending these meetings. Anyone else? None. Superintendent, do we need to go into executive session tonight?
No, we do not, Mr.
Do
Chairman.
not. So I need a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Hess. Seconded by Mrs. Waters. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. Thank you.